Good morning. I'm Richard Powell. What happens to your dearest memories when a big change in life occurs? That is a question I've discovered the answer to in the last few months. Moving into a new house recently, one with blank walls, no furniture, I felt was an opportunity to create something from scratch. But there was a problem. The new house had no memories in it. It held nothing. And while memories can be stifling and limiting, I have learned from and leaned on all the things that are in my house to remind me who I am, where I come from, and what matters most to me. Now, I love a blank piece of paper or a blank canvas. I like empty fields and empty highways rolling into the horizon. I love calm and quiet and getting to play music as loud as I want, any type of music I want, when I want. So moving into a new place where I could be by myself most of the day, normally I have kids, seemed just fine to me. And that was true until it wasn't. After a few days on a blank canvas of a house, I felt kind of unmoored, slightly adrift, and it took me a while to figure out what I was feeling. Was it being an empty nester and saying goodbye to that life I had had with children in my home for 29 years? Yes, that was part of it. Was it moving 169 miles away from Portland, my family, my friends? Absolutely. But after spending a few days in my new house, I would rush back home to the home here, meet with my kids, my family, my friends. I'd walk all around my house, looking at the pictures, touching things, just to make sure everything was still in one piece where it's supposed to be. And immediately I would just have this sigh of relief over and over again. I thought, what the heck is that? Why would I be so relieved to be back in my home? As I walked around looking at all my very cluttered walls and surfaces, things from my mom, things from my dad, my grandmother, my kids, I was seeing my life represented and reflected back to me. Wow, it felt very validating and very nourishing. I realized I was not ready to make such a move without these memories. I decided then and there to bring more pictures and treasures from home. Now you're wondering, why, Richard, didn't you just bring that stuff up with you in the first place? Well, good point, but like I said, I wanted to start with a blank canvas. And more practically, I had no furniture to put it on. When we moved up there, there's nothing to put anything on. So put simply, I didn't anticipate what it was going to be like to not have all these memories around me. I mean, there is a downside to memories, right? They can keep you stuck in a rut. They can make you feel like all the good times are behind you. And there's liberation when the past no longer dictates what my present or my future is. It can be burdensome to try to replicate the wonderful times I had in the past. So now I've been given an opportunity, one worthy of the Japanese organizing guru, Marie Kondo. I can let go of the memories that no longer bring me joy and make room for new memories, knowing they will bring me just as much joy and fun as those I've cherished for years. And as the holiday season comes around again, I would like to wish all of you the opportunity to let go of memories and things that no longer bring you joy and make room in your home and in your heart for new memories that will bring you joy in the years to come, that you'll be able to walk around your home and see and touch and feel like you are truly home.
I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty of the world through my own eyes. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty of the world through my own eyes. Now the world outside is such a cold and bitter place. Here inside I have few things that will console. And when I try to hear your voice above the storms of life, then I remember all the things I was told. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty of the world through my own eyes. I thought that you were gone, but now I know you're with me. You are the voice that whispers all I need to hear. Back when my family and I moved back to Oregon with our 2 children, I sat down with my parents to talk about the holidays. I didn't want to go to their house every holiday, and so Mom and I made a deal. She said that she wanted to do Thanksgiving, and she would come to our house for Christmas. And that worked really well for several years, especially after the Stanard family started doing Thanksgiving on Friday. But 2 years ago, COVID hit. Dees and I had a lovely roast chicken and sides. I traded a pumpkin pie with my friend for some of her chestnut dressing. It was too scary to be inside with friends or family. It was my little sister's first Thanksgiving away from my parents' home in her 51 years. She had never missed a Thanksgiving at my parents' house. And last year, my partner Dees and I were in Phoenix for Thanksgiving after their dad had a major stroke on the Tuesday, and we flew out to care for Dees's mom, who has dementia. And this year, lots of things were really wonderful. Dees's parents came with us for Thanksgiving. We had a really nice time. They had a really good time. My sister and brother-in-law were there, and my aunt and uncle, and both of my daughters. And my mom died 5 weeks ago, and that was really sad. It was our first Thanksgiving without her, and it will be a whole year of firsts without her. And that's hard, but especially Thanksgiving, which was her holiday. Even though my mom has been nearly blind and unable to even be in the kitchen for at least 3 or 4 years now, she always hollered at my dad, telling him how to make the cranberry relish. Carrie took over doing the creamed onions. I took on the candied sweet potatoes and a green vegetable, but not Brussels sprouts, Marsh. Nobody likes your Brussels sprouts except you. Okay, and I will tell you that I had a 9-year-old boy request my Brussels sprouts for his birthday, so she's just wrong. My friend and colleague, the Reverend Michelle Buhite, notes, too often it takes a disruption to present life to make us slow down enough to appreciate the present moment. I have experienced a great deal of disruption in the last year, and all of us have experienced a great deal of disruption since March of 2020. But I am also profoundly grateful that I live in such a way that notices the beauty and joy around me. The poem Stephanie read about a mother sinking into a sweet time out of time moment with her child. Now, I know that a lot of parenting is the relentlessness of it all. But today, I am here to talk about noticing those moments in parenting, in being with one's own parents, in family life, in anything at all where you can just soak up the sweetness, and in the words of Mary Oliver, hold it against your bones. I remember so vividly this one moment with Mika. She was under 2, and my partner at the time, her other mom, Jill, was out of town for a whole week, away at a conference. And I was a little nervous about single parenting for a whole week. I hadn't done that yet. And there was this moment just burned into my mind where Mika was by the front door, and she was wearing jeans and a little purple plaid flannel shirt, and I just had this overwhelming moment of falling in love with her all over again. I have had those same moments with my daughter, Marcella, especially picking her up from preschool or first or second grade. She'd be out on the playground, and we would spot each other, and she'd yell, "Get ready!" And I would go down and be like the baseball catcher, and she would run into my arms like a baseball being pitched, and I would scoop her up and twirl around. And my line is that, by the time you've been married long enough to have a 4-year-old, chances are your partner's face does not light up every single time you walk into the room. Maybe you're lucky, maybe yours does, power to you. But my 4-year-old daughter's face lit up every time I walked into the room, and that is just a miracle. My mother was not a hoarder, but she was definitely a pack rat. And I can joke about this because I have sadly inherited this trait. There was no rotten food or deceased animals in her home. Her living room was very tidy, in fact. But in the last 5 weeks, my dad has gone through and gotten rid of so much stuff. From the old utility bills that Mom insisted they save, to so many packages of greeting cards that were never opened or sent, to photos of people that no one can identify anymore. And so when Carrie and I came home for Thanksgiving weekend, Dad gave us each a small box of old things that were ours. Old report cards, school photos from those terribly awkward years. 14 with the braces and the mullet. It was bad. School newspapers that I'd written articles for and then run off on the mimeograph machine. Anybody remember mimeograph machines? And cards I'd written from camp full of details both remembered, I had swimmer's ear, and forgotten. I completely forgot that the camp nurse had to drive me into Philomath for a doctor to give me a diagnosis on the swimmer's ear. It is amazing what we remember and what we don't. Last week, Marcella told me that she really loved the amount of freedom that she and Marcella had when they were kids, walking everywhere, going to neighborhood parks. I'm so glad you weren't those parents that never let kids have any freedom. Honey, you never walked to school a day in your life because we always lived way too far away from your schools, right? That is not how I remember the story, but that's how she remembers it. There are so many ways to tell a story. There are ways that make you the hero. There are ways that make you the victim. Ways in which you got what you needed or didn't. A friend of mine, her name is Kelly, tells a story about grocery shopping with her sister when they were kids. They were like 11 and 12. And Kelly's story is that their mom was really busy, and so she asked the kids to go to the grocery store for her, and she gave them the money, and she trusted them to bring back what they needed for the family, to handle the money, to get to the grocery store and back. She felt really good about this. She felt trusted. She felt like she mattered. And years later, she realized that her sister's telling of this story is that their mom didn't have time to take care of them, so they had to do everything by themselves. Both of those ways of looking at the story are totally valid. One is going to make you a lot happier. I love that my kids perceived that they had the freedom to roam the neighborhood when they were kids, even though that is not what I remember at all. My mom and I had a really challenging relationship when I was in high school. She would yell at me about how I did the dishes at least twice a week. Those things that you figure out later, it's like, why did I ever just not say clearly, Mom, clearly you don't like how I do the dishes. How about Carrie does the dishes and I do everything else? But that never hits your brain when you're 15 years old. And she was a wonderful mom in so many other ways. And so how do I balance those stories? As she got older, her physical decline made me really tender towards her. It was easy for me to be tender with her. And I think it was a little more difficult sometimes for the rest of my family. But we were able to just sort of sink into that in a way that we had not sunk into that before. How do you tell your stories? Marcus Borg, a Christian theologian, has a book called Taking the Bible Seriously but Not Literally. And he writes about how the Bible has been hijacked on both sides by religious literalists. The conservatives say that if it's not 100% factually true, it's not true. And so the conservatives double down on a 7-day creation, Noah's Ark really happened, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then liberals say, well, clearly that stuff isn't true, and so none of it is true, and throw the whole thing out with the bathwater. And what Marcus Borg says is that something can be deeply true without being factual. You have things in your life that are like that? You have feelings or memories or formative experiences that are deeply factual. That are deeply true, even if they didn't happen exactly that way. My kids believed that they had the freedom to be independent during their childhoods. I believe that I was probably relatively good at that, and I don't ever remember them at 6 and 9 walking around the neighborhood by themselves. But I am so glad that both of those things get to be true. Truth and memory are really all about perception. If we can perceive that we got what we needed. Some of us didn't get what we needed. Some of us had horrific parents or life that was cruel, and you don't have to pretend that that's not true, because it is deeply true. But somewhere, someone loved you, or you wouldn't be here. And so today, I would like to encourage you to remember the truth in that story. Someone loved you. You are beloved. Find and hang on to the moments of sweetness and joy and connection. The grief and loss will come soon enough. It will come too soon. But remember that love bats last. That in the end, it is well with my soul. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.